Nobody in the restaurant industry wants to admit this is happening. But it is. Right now, 12 restaurant chains that used to be part of everyday American life are heading toward total collapse in 2026. I've spent weeks digging through bankruptcy filings, closure announcements, and franchise reports. And what I found isn't a slowdown. It's a wipeout. Some of these chains are shutting down dozens of locations at a time. Others are buried under debt they may never climb out of. A few have already lost more than 90% of what they once were. But here's the part most people get wrong. Everyone wants to blame the economy. Inflation, rent, labor costs. And sure, that's part of it. But the real reason runs deeper than that. It's us. It's customers quietly deciding these brands are no longer worth what they're charging and walking away without saying a word. Picture parking lots that used to be packed on a Friday night, now sitting empty with weeds growing through the cracks. Buildings that used to smell like comfort food, now dark, locked, and for lease. That's not a hypothetical. That's already happening in cities across the country right now. So today, I'm counting down all 12. Some of these names are going to surprise you. And by the end, you'll understand exactly why even the brands you grew up loving aren't safe anymore. Let's start with number 12. Number 12, Boston Market less than 10 years ago. Boston Market wasn't just a restaurant chain, it was a comfort food empire. Over 1,200 locations stretched across the country, each one promising golden rotisserie chicken, homemade-style mashed potatoes, and buttery corn. For millions of tired families, this was the easy answer to what's for dinner without ever turning on a stove. Today, that empire is almost gone. Fewer than 30 locations remain nationwide, a collapse of more than 97%. Even Massachusetts, the state where the brand was born, lost its very last location in 2025. Think about that. The birthplace of Boston Market no longer has a single Boston Market left standing. And this didn't happen slowly. It happened in waves. Customers would pull up expecting dinner and instead find the doors chained shut, the signs still glowing outside, the inside completely dark. Behind those locked doors were mounting debts to suppliers, disputes with landlords, and accusations piling up from former employees. But the deeper wound came from somewhere else, entirely grocery stores. When supermarkets started selling fully cooked rotisserie chickens for under $5, Boston Market's entire reason for existing quietly disappeared. Drive past one of these old locations today, and you'll likely see weeds pushing up through a cracked, empty parking lot. A brand that once defined convenience couldn't keep up when convenience itself changed, and it paid for that with everything it had built. Number 11, Red Lobster for decades. Red Lobster was the name everyone knew for affordable seafood. Free Cheddar Bay biscuits on every table, plates of buttery lobster, hot snow crab legs, and that warm feeling of a family celebration without the high-end price tag. If you wanted seafood without draining your wallet, Red Lobster was the default choice. Then in 2024, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, carrying more than $1 billion in debt. In one of the biggest shocks the restaurant industry has seen in years, nearly 100 locations closed in a single, sweeping round of cuts. The root cause has become something of a cautionary tale in the industry. The endless shrimp promotion, originally meant as a limited-time deal, was turned into a permanent menu item priced around $20. Customers piled in and ate as much as they wanted, right as food and labor costs were climbing fast. The losses added up in just a few months. An investment group eventually stepped in to keep the brand alive, but survival has come at a cost. The menu has been slashed. Fresh seafood has been swapped for frozen industrial alternatives. Even the beloved Cheddar Bay biscuits are noticeably smaller now. Red Lobster is still open. But walk in today, and the difference is obvious. It no longer feels like a celebration spot. It feels like a brand just trying to make it through another day. Number 10, TGI Fridays. For decades, TGI Fridays was where people went to shake off a long work week. Jack Daniels, glazed ribs, loaded potato skins, colorful cocktails, and that loud, cheerful energy of servers clapping and singing happy birthday across the room. Fridays wasn't really selling food, it was selling the feeling of the weekend finally arriving. That feeling is fading fast. Since 2024, TGI Fridays has been operating under Chapter 11 bankruptcy, carrying tens of millions of dollars in debt. What used to be hundreds of locations across the country has shrunk down to roughly 80, still standing today a sharp collapse in under 2 years. The core problem is that Fridays got stuck in the middle. It tried chasing trends to win over younger customers, but in doing so, it left its loyal regulars feeling forgotten. Prices climbed steadily while portions and quality quietly slipped. Walk into many locations today, and it almost feels like stepping into a time capsule. The decor, the colors, the overall feel, much of it is frozen somewhere around 2007. Customers are paying real restaurant prices for food that often tastes processed and reheated, and more of them are reaching the same conclusion: it's just not worth it anymore. The red and white sign still lights up outside. But inside, even during what should be peak hours, the energy that once defined TGI Fridays has gone quiet. Number 9, Applebee's. Not long ago, you could find an Applebee's in almost every neighborhood, suburb, and roadside strip in America. With its neighborhood grill and bar slogan, Applebee's stood for something simple, affordable, familiar, no-fuss dining. It was where you stopped after a football game, brought the family for wings and honey barbecue ribs, and never had to think twice about the bill. That familiarity is quietly slipping away. Applebee's parent company has been closing locations in waves over recent years, and more cuts have already been announced. There's no single dramatic headline here, just one restaurant closing at a time, one neighborhood at a time, in a silence that feels almost more unsettling than a sudden collapse. The deeper issue is that Applebee's lost its own identity. Prices climbed to cover rising costs, but the food never kept pace. Many longtime customers started to feel like they were paying real restaurant prices for reheated, industrial tasting meals, shrinking portions, and flavors that just didn't land anymore. It stopped feeling worth it. Drive through a familiar street today, and you might still see the sign glowing. But the parking lot sits empty, and the neon looks a little dimmer than it used to. A chain that once felt like everyone's neighborhood spot now feels easy to drive past without a second thought. Applebee's is proof that simply existing isn't enough, not if the value stops showing up on the plate. Number 8, Hooters. 2 decades ago, Hooters was a phenomenon. Crispy, spicy wings, cold beer, football playing on every screen, and servers in their signature uniforms. It was a formula that helped the brand expand aggressively and become a go-to destination for a very specific crowd. That formula isn't working anymore. By 2026, Hooters has been closing locations across multiple states, from Florida and Texas to Virginia. Revenue has been sliding, and the deeper issue isn't really the food, it's the business model itself. Gen Z and younger millennials have largely turned away. To them, the entire concept feels outdated and out of step with today's values. Meanwhile, the customers who built the brand in the 80s and 90s have grown older, started families, and no longer see Hooters as a place they want to bring everyone. As the customer base shrank, the cost-cutting began. The wing quality that once gave loyal fans a reason to defend the brand has slipped too dry, under-seasoned, clearly frozen and refried. Prices, however, never came down to match. Even longtime regulars are struggling to find a reason to keep coming back. Hooters is paying the price for holding on to a formula that worked brilliantly for decades, but simply doesn't match where culture has moved. A brand that once felt untouchable with its core audience is now fading quietly off the map, one closed location at a time. Number 7. KFC. It's almost hard to believe a legend like KFC has landed on this list. Right now, the fried chicken category is booming Chick-fil-A lines wrap around buildings from morning to night, and Raising Cane's is expanding at a breakneck pace. Yet KFC, the brand that once defined fried chicken in America, is losing ground on its own home turf, with sales falling across multiple quarters. For generations, KFC meant Sunday dinners, post-game rewards, and that familiar secret blend of 11 herbs and spices. But the experience today looks very different. Customers report paying premium prices for a 4-piece chicken box, only to open it and find portions that feel cut down dramatically. Complaints about greasy, overly salty chicken have become common. Step into many locations, and the space itself feels dated, almost frozen somewhere around the mid-2000s. The menu tries to cover everything at once. While competitors have taken the opposite approach, Chick-fil-A perfected the sandwich, Raising Cane's perfected the tender. KFC, meanwhile, has spread itself thin, and quality has become inconsistent as a result. There's also a bigger cultural shift working against it. More consumers are actively steering away from food fried in industrial seed oils and packed with additives. Once, but it tastes good, stops being true, there's little left pulling people back through the door. An empire that once dominated fried chicken is now fighting just to hold its ground. Number 6. Cracker Barrel rocking chairs out front, a crackling fireplace inside, and a menu built around Southern comfort, crispy fried chicken, hot biscuits, peach cobbler. For generations, Cracker Barrel was one of the most nostalgic stops in American dining. The kind of place families pulled into during long road trips or visited every Sunday after church. That nostalgia is now under serious strain. Cracker Barrel is closing locations and pausing expansion plans across several regions. Rising operating costs, declining foot traffic, and a menu heavy on fried foods and carbs at a time when more diners want healthier options have all played a part. But the deepest wound came from leadership itself. In an effort to win over younger customers, Cracker Barrel pushed an aggressive modernization plan, updating its logo and stripping away the rustic touches that made it feel special in the first place. The rocking chairs, the antique decor, the cozy country store, feel much of it was quietly replaced with a more minimalist, modern look. The result backfired in both directions. Loyal customers felt alienated, like the brand had abandoned what they loved about it. Meanwhile, the younger crowd Cracker Barrel was chasing already had plenty of trendy alternatives and weren't particularly swayed. As one frustrated longtime fan put it, the brand was chasing new trends while tearing down the very thing that made people love it. Cracker Barrel is still standing, but its identity crisis may be its hardest test yet. Number 5. Outback Steakhouse birthday, an anniversary, a reward after a hard week for years. Outback was the automatic answer. The dim, warm dining room, the smell of grilled steak, and that massive, crispy bloomin' onion made it feel like a treat without feeling out of reach. That balance has broken down. In early 2025, parent company Bloomin' Brands abruptly closed 41 locations, and these weren't struggling outposts either. Many had been steady, reliable performers for years. The core issue comes down to one brutal figure: dinner for a family of 4 at Outback can now easily run between $160 and $220. Surging beef prices and rising labor costs have pushed menu prices to a point where many middle-class families now think twice before booking a table. And the math gets even harder to justify once you factor in the bloomin' onion itself, a single appetizer that packs nearly 2,000 calories and a heavy dose of saturated fat. The regret isn't just financial anymore. It's about health, too. More and more customers are running the numbers and landing on the same conclusion. Spend over $180 on a heavy, greasy meal with shrinking portions. Or buy the ingredients and cook something better at home for half the price. Outback hasn't disappeared, but it's steadily losing its grip on the very customers who once considered it their go-to-special occasion spot proof that even treat yourself dining has a price ceiling. Number 4. Starbucks. There's a reason Starbucks earned the nickname the third place, somewhere between home and work, where people could grab a hot latte, steal a few quiet minutes, or post up with free Wi-Fi to get something done. For years, a Starbucks run wasn't a luxury. It was just part of the daily routine. That routine is getting expensive to justify. A medium coffee can now easily run $7 or $8, even as the quality and speed of service haven't kept pace with the price tag. More loyal customers have started doing simple math and arriving at the same conclusion. Making coffee at home is cheaper, often better, and definitely faster. Even the ones who stick around tend to show up only when there's a discount code or a promotion driving them in. What makes it worse for Starbucks is that its sense of exclusivity is fading. When the price climbs but the experience doesn't feel special anymore, customers start drifting toward local coffee shops and fast-growing independent chains instead. Many locations now feel noticeably quieter, with longer wait times and thinner staffing than before. A brand people once lined up for and happily paid a premium to visit is slowly becoming optional rather than essential. It's a clear signal that even a giant capable of shaping daily habits can start to slip once customers tighten their spending and start demanding more for their money. Number 3, Chipotle long lines out the door. Fresh ingredients hand-mashed into guacamole, and the sense that you were eating something genuinely better than typical fast food. That combination is what turned Chipotle into a fast, casual phenomenon. People were willing to pay more because the value felt real. That value is harder to find now. A single meal at Chipotle can easily cost between $18 and $25, putting a burrito in the same price range as a sit-down restaurant entree. That alone has customers asking a tougher question than before. Is this actually still worth it? The answer is getting harder to defend. Portions have visibly shrunk, rice and beans scooped noticeably lighter, even as prices keep climbing quarter after quarter. Many longtime customers report inconsistent quality too. Dry or hard rice some days, chewy meat, guacamole that's smaller and blander than it used to be. The brand is now caught in an uncomfortable squeeze. It can't compete on price with cheap fast food, and it's no longer delivering an experience that feels worth paying restaurant-level prices for. Meanwhile, newer competitors are entering with similar concepts, lower prices, and more generous portions, pulling loyal customers away. The result is a brand people used to visit weekly now, only returning when there's a discount, or skipping the trip entirely to build burrito bowls at home. Chipotle is still massive, but it's quietly losing the trust that built its reputation in the first place. Number 2. Kroger. This one's a little different. Kroger isn't a restaurant chain at all. It's a grocery giant, a place millions of families rely on every week for meat, produce, prescriptions, and gas. For people in suburbs and small towns especially, Kroger isn't just convenient, it's one of the most essential parts of daily life. And that essential giant is quietly closing stores in waves. This isn't random trimming, it's a deliberate strategy to cut locations that are no longer profitable. The deeper cause is rising costs from every direction: wages, refrigeration, transportation, logistics, even security spending to combat theft. At the same time, customers are tightening their own budgets, splitting up shopping trips, hunting for coupons, switching to cheaper private label brands, and cutting out impulse buys altogether. A grocery cart that used to run around $150 is something many families are now fighting to keep under $100. The most troubling part isn't the closures themselves, it's what happens after. When a Kroger in a rural or suburban area shuts down, it can instantly create a food desert. The nearest supermarket might suddenly be double or triple the distance away, forcing residents to drive farther, spend more on gas, and lose more time just to handle basic grocery shopping. Kroger is still a massive company, but this pullback is a warning sign that even the food supply chains people consider rock solid aren't as stable as they once seemed. Number 1. Red Robin. If there's one slogan that instantly brings back memories for an entire generation, it's Red Robin Yum. This was the brand built on generosity: thick, juicy burgers, a bright and lively atmosphere, and baskets of bottomless fries that just kept coming. It was where parents brought kids to celebrate after a baseball game, where the bill never had to overshadow the laughter at the table. That generosity is gone, and what's replaced it is an eerie quiet. Hundreds of locations across the country have gone dark, and the story behind it is almost painfully simple. When a brand chases margins at the expense of its customers, it loses everything that made it special in the first place. To protect profits, prices kept climbing. In return, customers got smaller burgers, weaker meat quality, and slower service. The idea of an affordable family meal, the entire foundation Red Robin was built on, quietly fell apart. People stopped feeling welcomed and started feeling like they were simply being charged for every last detail. When a brand built entirely on family joy reaches a breaking point like this, it sends a message far bigger than one company's struggles. It marks the end of an era. Easy, comfortable, no stress dining out used to be a given. Now it isn't. The Red Robin sign might still glow on a few street corners, but the warmth behind it has gone quiet, and what's left feels more like a memory than a restaurant. The collapse of these 12 restaurant chains in 2026 isn't an isolated story, it's a warning sign for the entire restaurant industry. From a shrinking KFC chicken box to an $8 Starbucks latte to an empty Kroger parking lot, the pattern is the same everywhere. Prices kept climbing while the value behind them quietly disappeared. This wave of restaurant closures in 2026 didn't happen by accident. It's the direct result of rising food costs, shrinking portions, and customers who finally decided they were done overpaying for less. The days when people automatically stayed loyal to a familiar logo are over. In 2026, customers are loyal to value, not to brand names. So when you see another set of restaurant chains closing locations this year, remember this isn't really about bad luck or a slow economy. It's about which restaurant brands earned their customers' trust back, and which ones spent it without realizing the account was running dry. The real question isn't which chain shuts down next, it's whether any of these companies will change course before it's too late. Which of these 12 restaurant chains surprised you the most? And which one do you think is the next major restaurant chain to collapse in 2026? Drop your prediction in the comments below. I read every single one. If this breakdown of America's restaurant industry collapse helped you understand what's really happening behind the headlines, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chain on the brink. And if you want to see a deep dive on any specific brand from this list, let me know below. That could be the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.